The most terrifying thing about torture isn't the pain itself. It's knowing someone spent years perfecting the method to break you. What kind of mind develops machines specifically to maximize human suffering without causing death? Throughout history, these weren't just sadistic outliers. They were respected professionals with government salaries. Most history books gloss over the sophistication of pre-modern torture. They might mention the rack or thumbscrews before quickly moving on to treaties and coronations, but understanding these methodical horrors reveals more about our ancestors than any peace accord ever could. The water torture, not the crude waterboarding you're thinking of, was a masterclass in psychological breakdown. Victims were strapped beneath a device that released single drops of water onto the same spot on their forehead. Minute after minute, hour after hour, the same exact spot. The first hour, prisoners laughed at the simplicity. By hour 5, the repetitive sensation had transformed into searing pain as nerve endings became hypersensitized. By hour 10, victims would confess to absolutely anything. Records from 16th century Italy document prisoners begging to be drawn and quartered instead, a process where horses literally tore your limbs from your body. The truly disturbing aspect. Court documents reveal this method was specifically chosen because it left no physical evidence, making it impossible for victims to later prove their confessions were coerced. Perfect bureaucratic deniability. The breaking wheel, used across Europe until the 19th century, demonstrated a disturbing understanding of human anatomy. The executioner, a respected civic employee who inherited his position through family lines, would meticulously break each of the victim's limbs with an iron hammer, carefully avoiding fatal blows. Starting with the legs and arms, each bone was systematically shattered. The victim was then woven through the spokes of a large wheel, their shattered limbs folded in unnatural angles between the wooden slats. This wheel would be mounted on a pole in the town square, where the victim might survive for days. Executioner diaries from 1703 in Nuremberg document one victim surviving 9 days on the wheel before death. The psychological horror for townspeople was deliberate, a reminder that authority could unmake not just your life, but your very humanity. But perhaps most disturbing were the torture methods disguised as science. By the 18th century, as the Enlightenment supposedly ushered in more humane societies, torture simply went underground, rebranding itself as medical inquiry. Take the tranquilizer chair invented by American physician Benjamin Rush, whose face ironically adorned the American Psychiatric Association's seal until 2015. This device restrained patients completely immobile for days or weeks, causing excruciating muscle atrophy while purportedly calming the brain. Rush's personal notes reveal he understood the devastating physical effects, yet praised the complete psychological breakdown that resulted. Patients would emerge obedient, compliant, and emotionally vacant, exactly the desired outcome. The pear of anguish reveals the gendered nature of torture throughout history. This metal device, shaped like a pear, was inserted into various orifices depending on the crime: the mouth for blasphemers, the vagina for women accused of consorting with Satan or abortion, and the anus for homosexual men. A screw mechanism would slowly expand the segments, causing internal tearing and unimaginable pain. Mortality rates exceeded 80% from internal bleeding, yet courts classified it as a non-lethal punishment, allowing its widespread use for even minor infractions. What court records don't mention is that the device was frequently left partially expanded inside victims who survived, leaving them permanently disfigured and in chronic pain. This wasn't an oversight, it was the point: physical evidence of shame made visible. Most people know about the Iron Maiden, but medieval records expose a far more disturbing reality about this iconic torture device. The popular notion of a spiked coffin that impaled victims is actually a 19th century exaggeration. The historical truth is worse. The authentic devices found primarily in Germanic regions were indeed metal chambers lined with spikes, but these spikes were intentionally positioned to avoid vital organs. The victim would be sealed inside, penetrated by dozens of metal points specifically engineered to maximum depth without causing fatal injury. Then came the truly horrific element revealed in executioner logs. The chambers were designed to be forgotten. Victims weren't dramatically impaled for quick death. They were locked away in these devices in soundproofed castle chambers, left to die over weeks from infection, dehydration, and slow blood loss. castle renovation in 1820s Bavaria uncovered one such chamber with skeletal remains inside, showing evidence the victim had lived approximately 17 days, slowly shifting position to minimize pain, creating distinct wear patterns on the bones. The psychological sophistication of torture reached its apex with sleep deprivation techniques, documented extensively in European witch trial records. Suspects were kept awake through various methods, constant noise, stress positions, or guards with whips for up to 7 days. By day 3, hallucinations began. By day 5, most experienced complete psychological collapse. Medical records from these trials reveal an understanding of the physiological effects that seems impossible for the era. Court physicians documented the exact timeline of deterioration, noting when cognitive breakdown would make false confession most likely. They weren't just breaking bodies, they were systematically dismantling minds with clinical precision. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery in torture history comes from financial records, not the torture devices themselves. Account books from 15th century French municipalities show torture was budgeted annually as a standard government expense with dedicated salaries, equipment maintenance costs, and facility upgrades. These weren't heated moments of public vengeance. They were calculated, institutionalized systems. Expense reports from one French province revealed a local torturer submitted reimbursement requests for equipment innovation, receiving governmental grants to develop more effective methods. The bureaucratic normalization of extreme cruelty presents a far more chilling picture than any individual device. The true innovation of the Spanish boot, a metal boot-like device that crushed the leg through screw mechanisms, wasn't its crushing capability, but its precise adjustability. Court records show payments to physicians who advised executioners on exactly how much pressure would shatter tibia bones without causing unconsciousness. Detailed pressure charts have been discovered in executioner manuals, showing an understanding of pain thresholds that predates formal pain science by centuries. Most history books present torture as a punishment or information extraction method. The hidden truth, revealed in administrative documents, is far more calculated. It was primarily a social control mechanism. Statistical analysis of 16th century German court records reveals torture was publicly performed most frequently during periods of food shortage or tax increases, when population unrest threatened authority, rather than during crime waves. The lasting effects of institutionalized torture extend beyond physical methods into our legal foundations. The standard of innocent until proven guilty developed precisely because torture-extracted confessions proved notoriously unreliable. Yet simultaneously, legal codes established by the same authorities contained explicit torture protocols. This contradiction reveals the true purpose was never justice. It was power maintenance. When we look at history through the lens of its torture methods, we see not just cruelty but systematic psychological warfare waged by authorities against populations. These weren't primitive attempts at information gathering. They were sophisticated terror campaigns designed to paralyze civilian resistance through fear. The most haunting aspect isn't that humans invented these methods. It's that they were refined over generations, improved upon like any technology, with innovations funded and celebrated. The torturer wasn't a sadistic outcast, but a professional craftsman passing specialized knowledge through guilds and apprenticeships like any other trade. What does this reveal about our ancestors? Not that they were more brutal than us, but that they systematized brutality with the same administrative efficiency we apply to infrastructure or healthcare. The machinery of suffering was maintained with the same bureaucratic attention as tax collection or road maintenance. And perhaps most disturbing of all, when these methods were finally abolished, it wasn't primarily because societies deemed them morally reprehensible. Economic analyses show torture declined most rapidly when industrialization created labor shortages, when damaged bodies became economically inefficient rather than ethically unacceptable. This isn't the history they teach in schools, but understanding the administrative normalization of extreme cruelty reveals more about how power operates than 1,000 political treaties. The sophistication of historical torture methods doesn't just tell us about physical pain. It exposes the calculated psychology of control that continues to shape governance today, long after the torture devices themselves have been relegated to museums.